Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have to admit, I never expected Britt's arrest to be the very thing that might save her life. The minute I saw everything unfold, I couldn't help but shake my head and think, well, sometimes life sure has a funny way of working things out. Around Port Charles, trouble usually brings more trouble, but every once in a while it opens a door that nobody saw coming. The more I think about it, the more convinced I am that Britt's worst day could end up becoming the biggest turning point in exposing a killer who's been hiding in plain sight. What really grabbed my attention wasn't the arrest itself, was those syringes. From the outside, they looked like exactly what Britt believed she needed, but now I'm starting to think they may become the most important pieces of evidence this whole storyline has seen. If the police end up taking everything Britt had with her back to Port Charles, that simple decision could completely change the direction of the investigation. I've watched enough General Hospital over the years to know that one tiny object can flip an entire story upside down, and these syringes feel like they're carrying a whole lot more than medicine. When Dante called the police and had Britt arrested for kidnapping while Lulu was inside talking with Britt and Rocco, I honestly thought the situation couldn't get much messier. Rocco clearly didn't want to leave, and Britt wasn't acting like someone trying to hurt him. In fact, from where I was sitting, it looked like she was desperately trying to protect him because she believed Cullum had already tracked them down. That's the kind of twist General Hospital loves to throw at us. Someone who looks guilty on the surface may actually be trying to stop something far worse from happening. Then, another possibility started rolling around in my mind. Britt may have tried to keep those syringes with her because she truly believed they were medicine. She had no reason to suspect Cassius had unknowingly mailed poison after Cullum secretly switched the contents. Now, that's where things get really interesting. If the authorities examine those syringes and discover they're filled with poison instead of medication, suddenly the entire case takes on a whole new meaning. The focus wouldn't just stay on Britt anymore. Every question would start pointing back toward whoever prepared and shipped those injections. Of course, there's still another outcome that could shake everything up. Joe Fitzpatrick could discover the contents before anyone jumps to conclusions, proving exactly what was switched and when it happened. Either way, I keep coming back to the same thought. Those syringes may end up telling the truth long before any of the people involved decide to, and as we all know, the truth has a way of catching up with everybody in Port Charles sooner or later. Like my old neighbor used to say, the chickens always come home to roost, and I have a feeling Cullum may be finding that out the hard way. The more I replay this whole situation in my mind, the more convinced I become that those syringes are no longer just props in Britt's storyline. They're the center of everything now. I honestly think the future of this investigation depends less on who was arrested and more on who opens that evidence bag first. That's what makes General Hospital so entertaining after all these years. The biggest twists rarely come from a gunshot or a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes they come from one tiny piece of evidence sitting quietly on a detective's desk while everyone is looking in the wrong direction. As I see it, there are only two realistic outcomes if those syringes are finally analyzed. The first is the straightforward one. Joe Fitzpatrick gets involved, does his job carefully, and discovers that what Britt believed was life-saving medication is actually poison. If that happens, the entire investigation changes overnight. Nobody would be talking only about Britt's kidnapping charges anymore. Suddenly, investigators would have to ask who prepared those injections, who mailed them, who had access to them, and who benefited from Britt never surviving long enough to tell her story. Those questions don't just point toward one suspect, they begin unraveling an entire criminal operation. That's why I don't think Cullum ever planned for the syringes to fall into police custody. His plan depended on Britt using one before anyone had a chance to examine the contents. If Britt had quietly injected herself, everyone might have believed her illness simply took a tragic turn. Cullum could have walked away without anyone questioning the shipment at all. Instead, fate stepped in at exactly the right moment. Britt's arrest interrupted the plan, and now the very evidence that was supposed to disappear inside her body could become the evidence that destroys everything Cullum has built. Now, here's where I think things become even more complicated. Cassius may end up looking guilty before anyone realizes he's been manipulated. Since Cullum and Jen Sidwell managed to place him inside the Port Charles Police Department, suspicion naturally falls on him if investigators trace the shipment back through police records. From the outside, it would certainly appear as though Cassius arranged everything himself. That's exactly the kind of trap a master manipulator loves to create. Don't leave fingerprints. Leave someone else's instead. The heartbreaking part is that Cassius probably believed he was sending legitimate Huntington's treatment to Britt. From everything we've seen, Rocco admitted giving him the address because everyone believed they were trying to help Britt survive. If that's true, then Cassius unknowingly became the delivery man for his own betrayal. I don't know about you, but that's the kind of twist that really gets under my skin. Being tricked into helping someone is bad enough. Being tricked into helping commit murder without even knowing it, that's on an entirely different level. Of course, there's another possibility that I've been thinking about ever since this storyline picked up speed. What if the evidence never reaches Joe first? What if not Nathan is the one who discovers what's inside those syringes? If he realizes the medication was secretly replaced before it ever reached Britt, every piece of the puzzle suddenly falls into place. In one moment, he'd understand that Cullum never trusted him. He simply used him as another disposable pawn. That's a dangerous realization because people who feel betrayed often become the biggest threat to the person who betrayed them. I've also been paying close attention to everything Cassius has managed to do inside the PCPD. We've already seen him quietly slip through different departments, access confidential files, alter information, and cover his tracks without raising much suspicion. Honestly, after watching Ethan Lovett maneuver through secure systems recently, it's become pretty clear that Port Charles isn't exactly Fort Knox. People who know where to look can get into places they shouldn't. That tells me Cassius has been surviving by staying one step ahead of everyone else. Unfortunately for him, Ross Cullum may have been playing an entirely different game all along. Then there's the emotional side of this story, and I don't think enough people are talking about it. Cassius has every reason in the world to hate Ross Cullum. The kidnapping of Liesel Obrecht wasn't just another criminal act, it was deeply personal. Cullum used Liesel to force the completion of Caesar Faison's unfinished cold fusion weapon prototype, treating human lives like they were nothing more than tools. That's not something a son simply forgets. Every time I think about that part of the story, I keep asking myself how long Cassius can continue working around Cullum before finally reaching his breaking point. What makes Britt's role even more meaningful is the fact that she wasn't thinking only about herself. She escaped that nightmare because she refused to stay trapped, and when Rocco insisted on going with her, she accepted the responsibility of protecting him. That reminds me of the way Jason Morgan has always stepped between danger and the people he cares about. Even Cassius once protected Rocco under impossible circumstances. Britt wasn't acting like someone trying to create chaos. From my perspective, she was doing everything she could to keep one frightened young man alive while danger closed in around them from every direction. In the end, my instincts tell me Ross Cullum has already made the mistake that every arrogant villain eventually makes. He believed he controlled every variable. He believed nobody would notice one simple switch. He believed everyone around him would continue doing exactly what he expected. But that's never how things work in Port Charles. Secrets have a habit of growing heavier every single day until someone can no longer carry them. As my grandfather used to say back in Kentucky, truth doesn't stay buried forever. I have a strong feeling that saying is about to prove itself once again, and when the dust finally settles, Ross Cullum may discover that the very trap he built for Britt has become the trap that destroys him instead.